everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared, and I'm sorry that I'm getting this video out late today. I started it last night with the intention of posting it this morning, but as is the case many times, this took longer than what I expected. It took a long time. We're going to be talking about Comet C 2023 P1 Nishimura. There's a few people that have emailed me about this, and I got a few other Comet emails as well of like other Comets. And I've also received a lot of emails and messages about Jen Stevens' channel and a video that she put together having to do, I think, with Virgo and the Revelation 12 sign happening again around the time of Rosh Hashanah, which is next month. It's the Jewish New Year. And just like getting all these messages and stuff. Now, hopefully, if you've been watching my channel for a while, I've done quite a few videos about comets. You just do a search on my channel for a comet, like I did right here. We've covered every comet that I know of, except for this one because this one's new, the Nishimura comet. But we've talked about Pons Brooks and a bunch of other ones. So if you're wanting to see all the details of what I've already found about these other comets, just do a search for comet. All these videos will pop up. And there's been a lot of weird things going on with comets the last few years, So for example, this one, I think this is the Pons Brooks, I can't remember. We'll look at it in a minute. I think this comet suddenly brightened by 100 times recently. It got much brighter. So I covered that. And there's the largest comet that's ever been found. And I'm going to show it all to you because what I did is I took the time, and this is what took so long, to put together a new spreadsheet specifically for comets, meteors, and asteroids. And obviously not all comets, meteors, and asteroids. That would take up many spreadsheets, I'm sure. Just notable ones. And so what I have here, just a quick introduction, is I have the name of the object, the type, whether it's a comet, asteroid, or meteor, if it's interstellar in origin, and that's going to be an interesting part of this video because it hasn't been until recently, around the time that President Nelson became president of the church, that we start seeing all these interstellar objects, meaning objects from outside of our solar system. For all of, astronomy, and as long as they've been recording these things, in recorded history, the first interstellar objects that we've noticed with modern science haven't started coming until around the time of President Nelson becoming president of the church. And we're going to go through all of those. And so I have in column G, the events. And the things that I'm most concerned with is when it was discovered, when its closest approach to Earth is, and when its perihelion is, which is when its closest approach to the sun. Those are like the three main things. And then if there's like other things that happen, like this one, 12P Pons Brooks, that abruptly brightened by 100 times, then I'll take note of those. And then I have, a brief description about the object, and then I have my references in column J. And so it took a while to put this together, and I have a lot, and there's going to be a lot of interesting things to talk about in this video. So first, let's go to how this video even came into being. I got a couple emails. I have this one from Stephanie Wall. I thought you'd be interested in this story I found on MSN. Comet Nishimura will approach Earth so closely that it should be visible to the naked eye. And by the way, when it comes to comets, that's kind of like the main thing that I'm tracking is comets that are going to be visible to the naked eye. I'll explain why in just a minute. Some of you already know if you've been watching the channel for a while. She continues, "It surprised me as I read this that I became hopeful and excited. Do you happen to remember where in the scriptures it mentions that when Jesus comes again, some will say it is a comet or a planet?" Yes, because I've made a number of videos that have covered that specific quote. It's not from the scriptures, but I'm about to show you where it comes from. And then she continues, "I can't remember where in the scriptures it was. The comet was only found this year because before that, it was hiding in the sun's glare. It will be visible to the naked eye this September." And again, in September, let me just show you on the calendar, we have Rosh Hashanah coming up and Yom Kippur. Those are the high holy days. And then a week after that, you have the Feast of Tabernacles. So this is the season of the fall holidays, the fall feasts, whatever you want to call them, with Rosh Hashanah beginning at sundown on the 15th of September. And then 10 days after that, known as the 10 days of awe, that leads up to Yom Kippur, the holiest day on the Hebrew calendar, also known as the Day of Atonement. And then a week after that, you have the Feast of Tabernacles. So it's coming during this season on the Hebrew calendar. And some of these other comets, I'm going to show you some peculiarities about them when it comes to the Hebrew calendar as we go through it. But back to the email. In this article mentions that, quote, "Yet what makes Comet Nishimura truly captivating is its potential interstellar origin. This speculation arises from its This speculation arises from its trajectory and the fact that it was discovered at a great distance from the sun. To date, only 3 interstellar objects have been identified." And then Stephanie continues, "It probably is not the second coming." Well, who knows? Who knows? It could be. I'm one to not limit what could potentially happen. Not saying that you are, but there are other people that do. That'd be like, "No, I know how things are going to happen. It can't possibly happen now." It probably is not the second coming, but another sign. Or one of the comments on your video tonight mentioned that possibly the fires are from Satan because he is the great deceiver and he seems to want to copy everything Jesus does. Only they said it more eloquently. Anyways, I found it interesting and thought maybe you would too. Yes, I do find it interesting, and I'm glad that you sent me the email. I also want to thank Christina Curtis. She says, "Not sure if you saw this comment. I always watch them as well." Okay, so I'm always watching them as well since it could herald the Savior's coming. Ciao, Christina. And then she leaves a link right here. Okay, yes. I think that comets are significant and something that we should watch for, especially if they're visible to the naked eye, because of that quote that Stephanie was referring to. If we go to my quotes A through Z spreadsheet, I have 3 quotes. Okay, this is where we find this out. It's unique to our church. It's not something that other churches. It's not part of their doctrine necessarily. So this one is from the Words of Joseph Smith, page 181. So it's Joseph Smith, and this is like notes from a meeting. So it's like someone else writing down what he said. So, read Matthew 24 chapter in all the prophets. He says, "Then shall they see the sign of the coming." And by the way, again, the misspellings here are not from me. It's directly copied from this source. So that's how the person who originally wrote down these notes, that's how they wrote it down. He says, "Then they see the sign of the coming of the Son of Man in the clouds of heaven." How are we to see it? Answer: as the lighting up of the morning of the dawning of the morning cometh from the east and shineth unto the west. So also is the coming of the Son of Man. The dawning of the morning makes its appearance in the east and moves along gradually. So also will the coming of the Son of Man be. It will be small at its first appearance and gradually becomes larger until every eye shall see it. Shall the saints understand it? Oh, yes. Paul says so. Shall the wicked understand? Oh, no. They attribute it to a natural cause. They will probably suppose it is two great comets coming in contact with each other. It will be small at first and will grow larger and larger until it will be all in a blaze so that every eye shall see it. Now, let's go over here to Scriptural Teachings of the Prophet Joseph Smith. These are quotes compiled by Joseph Fielding Smith, page 280. The editor, as well as some others, thinks that Joe Smith has his match at last, because Mr. Redding thinks he has seen the sign of the Son of Man. But I will use my right and declare that, notwithstanding Mr. Redding may have seen a wonderful appearance in the clouds one morning about sunrise, which is nothing very uncommon in the winter season, he has not seen the sign of the Son of Man, as foretold by Jesus. Neither has any man, nor will any man, until after the sun shall have been darkened and the moon bathed in blood. Which, again, President Hinckley, the month after 9/11, during General Conference, said that prophecy was fulfilled. For the Lord hath not shown me any such sign, and as the prophet saith, so it must be. Surely the Lord God will do nothing, but he revealeth his secret unto his servants, the prophets. Therefore, hear this, O earth. The Lord will not come to reign over the righteous in this world in 1843, nor until everything for the bridegroom is ready. And then we also have this quote from the same book, Scriptural Teachings of the Prophet Joseph Smith, page 287. Judah must return, Jerusalem must be rebuilt, and the temple, and water come out from under the temple, and the waters of the Dead Sea be healed. It will take some time to rebuild the walls of the city and the temple, and all this must be done before the Son of Man will make his appearance. There will be wars and rumors of wars, signs in the heavens above and on the earth beneath, the sun turned into darkness and the moon to blood, earthquakes in diverse places, the seas heaving beyond their bounds. By the way, all those things have already been talked about in General Conference in those specific words. And like I said, President Hinckley, the month after 9/11, said that Joel chapter 2, verses 28 to 32 have been fulfilled, that talk about the sun being turned into darkness, the moon to blood. And there's a lot of different times that happens. Eclipses and wildfires and on and on and on. Okay, so then will appear one grand sign of the Son of Man in heaven. But what will the world do? They will say it is a planet, a comet, etc. But the Son of Man will come as the sign of the coming of the Son of Man, which will be as the light of the morning cometh out of the east. All right, so from this we learn that at first it's going to start small, and people are going to attribute natural explanations as to what it is. You know, it's a comet, it's some kind of astronomical phenomenon, something like that. And so when there's a comet that's inbound and it seems like it's going to come close to Earth, so much so that we're going to be able to see it, that makes me pay attention to that, because it may not be a comet. It may be the sign of the Son of Man, and it's just at the very beginning, but it'll become more and more apparent as it gets closer, or as it gets brighter. And then, like I've said a million times, President Nelson in the October 2022 General Conference referenced the sign of the Son of Man when he said in his talk called Overcome the World and Find Rest. But my dear brothers and sisters, so many wonderful things are ahead. In coming days, we will see the greatest manifestations of the Savior's power that the world has ever seen. Between now and the time he returns with power and great glory, quote unquote, he will bestow countless privileges, blessings, and miracles upon the faithful. And that quote with power and great glory, it takes you to footnote 1, and that takes you to Joseph Smith Matthew, verse 36. Then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. So, even without the footnote, this is already a really powerful paragraph and amazing, saying that we'll see the greatest manifestations of the Savior's power the world has ever seen. But then coupling that with the footnote, taking you to Joseph Smith Matthew, verse 36, talking about the sign of the Son of Man, well, that must be on the prophet's mind. Otherwise, he wouldn't have cited that scripture. So you can see why there is probably good reason to pay attention to comets and other things in the heavens like asteroids and meteors. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's look at this article. The MSN article was actually from Earth.com. So it's called Comet Nishimura will approach Earth so closely that it should be visible to the naked eye, by Chrissy Sexton. In the vast expanse of our universe, objects come and go, providing us with glimpses into the mysteries of outer space. Comet Nishimura has recently caught the attention of the scientific community as a quote-unquote potentially interstellar celestial body. So the reason why I think that that's significant is for two reasons. One, it's not really clear exactly how Christ is going to approach Earth. Is he like traveling through space? Is he coming from outside the solar system? That very well could be. So that by itself makes this, potentially significant in thinking about this as maybe the sign of the Son of Man. I don't know if that's how it's going to happen. But secondly, if it's interstellar, that means that it hasn't been seen before. It's like brand new. It's not like it's a comet that comes around once every 75 years or whatever. So it's like a first time that we're seeing this thing. And so therefore, it may not be a comet. It may be the sign of the Son of Man. Now, I realize that we have telescopes and we can see it, and it may look like a comet. We've talked about the potential that these different objects in space, even though we can look at the moon and it looks barren, there may be other things there that we can't see with our natural eyes. Remember, for example, for a translated being like the three Nephites, their default mode is not visible. Because when we read in that scripture, I'm not going to pull it up, but in 3rd Nephi, chapter 28, he talks about how they have to pray to the Father in order to reveal themselves, which I think alludes to the fact that normally they're like in a hidden state. And so who knows what's on the moon? Who knows what's on the sun? I know what we can see with our natural eyes, but if we had eyes to see things beyond us, there might be more going on there than what we realize. There may be more layers of reality than what we can see. Even though the sun, for example, looks just like a large fusion reaction, a big nuclear reaction. If we were to see higher up, there might be more going on there. And that's why I think Brigham Young said that he believed that the moon was inhabited and the sun. And I don't think he meant by extraterrestrials like others of our brothers and sisters that are currently in mortality, but rather people that are resurrected or translated. So if a comet is coming toward us and it looks just like it's a comet, there might be aspects of that comet that we cannot see with our natural eyes. Okay? So, okay. Oh, and speaking of Satan and his imitations. I don't know if you ever remember this happening. There was the, I think it was Comet Haley Bop cult. Yeah, Heaven's Gate. So this was a very strange occurrence in 1997 where there was this cult called Heaven's Gate. Um, I'm sure that if you were old enough at that time to remember, that you probably still remember, because this was just so strange. There was this cult that believed that Haley Bop was actually, like, behind it. There was like a UFO. Okay, wait, here we go. Okay. Um, the central belief of the group was that followers could transform themselves into immortal extraterrestrial beings by rejecting their human nature, and they would ascend to heaven, referred to as the next level, or the evolutionary level above human. The death of Nettles from cancer in 1985 challenged the group's views on ascension, where they originally believed that they would ascend to heaven while alive aboard a UFO. They later came to believe that the body was merely a container or vehicle for the soul, and that their consciousness could be transferred to the next level bodies upon death. Um, Gosh, I wish it had more here, but on March 26, 1997, deputies of the San Diego County Sheriff's Department discovered the bodies of the 39 active members of the group, including that of Applewhite, in a house in the San Diego suburb of Rancho Santa Fe. They had participated in a coordinated series of ritual suicides, coinciding with the closest approach of Comet Haley Bop. Just before their mass suicide, the group's website was updated with the message, Haley Bop brings closure to Heaven's Gate. Our 22 years of classroom here on planet Earth is finally coming to conclusion. Graduation from the human evolutionary level. We are happily prepared to leave this world and go with T's crew. The name Heaven's Gate was only used for the final few years of the group's existence, and had previously been known under the names Human Individual Metamorphosis. Oh my gosh. Human Individual Metamorphosis and Total Outcomers Anonymous. Let's see. Tease. Okay, well, I don't need to go over this entire thing, but essentially, my understanding, and I could be wrong, but roughly, I think what they believed is that there was a spaceship um, that was going alongside Haley Bop that they were going to ascend to. Okay, and so that's why Haley Bop was important. So if Satan wanted to make a mockery, like if he knows that Christ is going to come, like when he comes, it's going to look like a comet, and maybe it will be a comet, but there's more to comets than what we can see with the natural eyes, then he may do this kind of perversion and mockery with people that are susceptible and, on a strange path. Let's just put it that way. So, anyway, let's go back to this. Okay, the comet is expected to slingshot around the sun in early September, making a fascinating appearance in our sky. At a speed of 240,000 miles per hour, Nishimura is predicted to approach Earth as close as 78 million miles on September 12th at 10 a.m. BST. So, again, let's look at the Hebrew calendar overlaid onto the Gregorian calendar. And the 12th is, let's see, 4 days before Rosh Hashanah. Well, 3 days, because really Rosh Hashanah starts on the 15th at sundown. So 3 days before. It doesn't happen during any of the holidays, and it doesn't happen during the 10 days of awe. It happens basically 3 or 4 days before that begins with Rosh Hashanah. But it is interesting that it's in, like I said, that it's in this season of the, this time frame of the fall holy days. Okay. The close encounter could make Comet Nishimura visible to the naked eye, appearing as a star-like blob with a signature tail. This phenomenon is often referred to as the visual representation of a dirty snowball. Okay, interstellar origin of Comet Nishimura. Yeah, what makes Comet Nishimura truly captivating is its potential interstellar origin. This speculation arises from its trajectory and the fact that it was discovered at a great distance from the sun. The discovery of the comet is credited to Hideo Nishimura of Japan, who managed to spot the celestial object using a telephoto lens mounted on a Canon camera on August 12th, 2023. The comet has also graced an image snapped by a photographer at June Lake, California, presenting itself as a vivid green blob with a brilliant tail. Visible for many days. In a recent blog post, NASA reflected on the visibility of Comet Nishimura, saying that it should be seen with the naked eye in the few days either side of its close approach. So, I mean, is it going to be visible up to Rosh Hashanah? I don't know, because they don't give an exact number of days. But, again, 3-4 days, maybe. That'll be interesting if that's the case. Okay. Quote, will Comet Nishimura become visible to the unaided eye? Given the unpredictability of comets, no one can say for sure, but it currently seems like a good bet, said NASA. The post suggests that the comet's luminosity might increase as it dives toward the sun in early September. Interstellar objects. To date, only 3 interstellar objects have been identified. This includes a meteor that struck Earth in 2014, only to be confirmed as interstellar by the U.S. Space Command 8 years later. This was followed by Oumuamua in 2017 and Comet Borisov in 2019. Interestingly, while Oumuamua was first labeled a comet, it was later reclassified as an asteroid due to the absence of a comma. On the other hand, 2I Borisov holds the distinction of being one of the most pristine comets ever observed, as announced by scientists in 2021. For now, the mystery of Comet Nishimura's true origins persist. Further orbital calculations may shed more light on its journey. If confirmed as being interstellar, it would solidify its place in the history of astronomy. So this would be a good time to go back to my spreadsheet. And let's go down to my first entries. And let's zoom out a little bit, just so you can see the big picture. So I'm going to add more, going back in time. But right now, my first entry is 2014 with that meteor that came and crashed to Earth. Okay. So that is the first one on this list. And then we have Oumuamua. Okay, so 2014, 2017. And on my spreadsheet, you can tell if it's interstellar by looking at column F. I have it really visible, having the background is black and the text white. Okay, so 1, 2, and then 2019, 3 with 2I Borisov. And then, since we don't know right now with Comet Nishimura, I just have it down as possibly, but I'm sure that they'll come to a conclusion on that at some future date. So this would be the 4th. Now, like I said, I think it's really odd. I think it's really, really odd that President Nelson becomes president in 2018. And so you have these two that show up during President Monson's time, starting in 2014. And then Oumuamua, just a few months, because it was October. Okay, so October, November, December, January, just 3 months before President Nelson becomes president of the church. became president in January of 2018. And then a year after his first year as president of the church, you have 2i Borisov. And now we have Comet Nishimura. And what's interesting about the timing with this, potentially the fourth interstellar object, if we go to my main timeline, so I put this in today, and this entry comes in right after President Nelson's 99th birthday. In fact, it's only 3 days away, or there's only 3 days between these two events. President Nelson's 99th birthday will be on the 9th of September, and then 3 days later, you'll have Comet Nishimura. So I think that's pretty interesting. I think it's pretty interesting. Let's go really quick through these different interstellar objects, because there's a lot of odd things going on with these. So the first one, it's actually been making a lot of news lately, because this astrophysicist from Harvard believes that it's actually extraterrestrial technology rather than like a natural meteor, what crashed to Earth. Right? So that's pretty weird. He's the same one that thinks that Oumuamua was actually an alien spacecraft, because they weren't able to directly observe it with telescopes. I think it's because it was too far away, and so all they were able to do is detect it with whatever other sensors they have. But the shape of it was, well, I'll save that for when we get to that. Okay, so first, with this first one, and it would seem that there's debate whether this thing is interstellar. So this may not even be the first one. So we're gonna have to wait and see what they determine in the future. But anyway, this is from space.com. Interstellar meteor fragments found. Harvard astronomers claim sparks debate and criticism. This is from July 20th of this year. So, in fact, today is the 24th, so this is less than a month old at the time that I'm reading this. Here's, it says, one of the metal's spherules, reportedly belonging to an interstellar meteorite, recovered by astronomer Avi Loeb. Okay. And he's saying that these, I'm going to call them spheres, these sphere things are actually extraterrestrial technology. Okay, the space rock, measuring roughly 1.6 feet or half a meter in diameter. Wait, what? Yeah, exploded over the Pacific Ocean on January 8th, 2014. By following the path of the meteor with the sled, Loeb hoped to find fragments of the rock which could then be analyzed to determine if their chemical composition could confirm them as being interstellar in origin. As it turns out, the expedition turned up dozens of tiny metallic spheres, or spherules, less than a millimeter in diameter. In a July 3rd blog post titled Summary of the Successful Interstellar Expedition, Loeb stated definitively that we did it. The discovery of these spherules, Loeb wrote, quote, opens a new frontier in astronomy where what lay outside the solar system is studied through a microscope rather than a telescope, end quote. While Loeb believes he has found evidence of the first interstellar meteorite, and I would say for that fact, object, because as far as I know, there's no other object that's been identified as interstellar in origin. Okay, others have their doubts, and the debate is turning ugly. Which makes sense to me. There's probably other scientists that are jealous, or I don't know, maybe Loeb is maybe he's a little zealous and a little over anxious, and I mean, who knows? I'm not in that crowd, so I can't say like what everybody's motivations are. But what I can say is there's probably maybe jealousy is at play, or maybe there's grandiosity. I'm the first one to discover to actually handle an interstellar object and study it. Who knows? I don't know. Okay, from the Independent, why a Harvard professor thinks he may have found fragments of an alien spacecraft. Maybe. I don't know. All right. After after spending years studying the night skies for signs of extraterrestrial life, Harvard University astrophysicist Avi Loeb believes he has found proof of their existence at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. Professor Loeb has just completed a $1.5 million expedition searching for signs of a mysterious meteor dubbed IM-1 that crashed off the coast of Papua New Guinea in 2014 and is believed to have come from interstellar space. Here's another picture of it. In his best-selling 2021 book, Extraterrestrial, The First Sign of Intelligent Life Beyond Earth, Professor Loeb argued that Oumuamua, remember, and we're going to talk about this next, Oumuamua, here's one, this is not a photo, it's artist depiction of what it may have looked like. There's that one, there's this one, okay, so that's what he's talking about. Professor Loeb argued that Oumuamua, a pancake-shaped space rock about the size of a football field, which was visible to scientists for 11 days in 2017, could only have been an interstellar technology built by aliens. I will say, though, this is really interesting looking, these spheres, but I'll let him and others do the analysis. His ideas have set him at odds with much of the scientific community. But the unapologetic scientist dubbed the alien hunter of Harvard tells the Independent that his naysayers are arrogant to dismiss his findings. The objects will now be taken back to Harvard for testing to confirm their makeup. But for Professor Loeb, the miracle discovery is further vindication that his unorthodox methods are bearing fruit. Well, and to his credit, sometimes that's what it takes. Sometimes you have to think outside the box, or you have to do things that are unconventional to either make new discoveries or invent new things or have success in whatever you're trying to do. So I cannot fault him for that. So anyway, yeah, so it turns out that this meteor or spacecraft is potentially the first interstellar object that we've observed in modern times with modern science. Okay. The second one, or potentially the first one, depending on how the first one goes, is Oumuamua. Okay. Now, I've already done a bunch of videos about Oumuamua. So, in fact, let me just show you really quick. And maybe what I'll do is I'll put the link for some of these in the description below. Oumuamua. It's a Hawaiian word. Yeah, I'll put some of these in the description below. I mention it in a number of different videos, but anyway, I don't want to talk too much about this just because I feel like I've covered it so much. But essentially, in a nutshell, it was a very strange object that came into the solar system. With this one, I think they're 100% certain that it's not from the solar system. So it came in. It has a very irregular shape. It's longer than it is wide. It's kind of like cigar shaped, I guess you could say. And when it came in, down and around the sun, like when it slingshotted around the sun, unlike other objects, it actually accelerated. Now, there are, in fact, this article itself says mystery of first interstellar visitor may be solved. I think that's probably referring to the fact that they didn't know what caused it to accelerate as it exited the solar system. So But anyway, for those reasons, its strange shape and its acceleration as it left the solar system, these were things that hadn't been seen before, I guess. But on a spiritual level, I think there might be more to it. Some hints that we might be able to glean from this. So if we go to the Wikipedia article, and I've already covered this before, but just as a reminder, or maybe some of you are seeing this for the first time. So the name comes from Hawaiian Amuamua, or scout, from U, or OU, reach out for, and Mua, reduplicated for emphasis, first in advance of. Now that's kind of ominous. Now it's not like the Lord named this or this comes from the scriptures, but I think that names, they have meaning, and sometimes people are maybe inspired to name things or people a certain way. So this object is essentially named first in advance of. And when you think about the second coming and the final appearance, well, I guess both the appearance to the Jews and the final appearance, because it seems like it's going to be similar, Christ coming in the clouds with the host of heaven. It makes you think of a scout ahead of an army. That's how military operations work. There's reconnaissance usually done, and then afterwards an attack. So you have a scout, the first in advance of an army that's coming. Maybe that's what a Muamua was. Again, maybe there's things that we can't see with our natural eyes that was going on with the Muamua. But it's a very interesting name. I'll say that. It's also interesting, again, that the Hawaiians and other Polynesians, according to our church, in statements from various prophets and apostles, are the descendants of the Nephites through Hagoth. So you have this, I guess you could say, Nephite name of this object from outside of our solar system called first in advance of. There is some other things though. It says, and reflects the way the object is like a scout or messenger sent from the distant past to reach out to humanity. It roughly translates to first distant messenger. So it seems like there's like these different things: scout, first in advance of, first distant messenger. It's like that kind of thing. And then later on, before the official name was decided, Rama was suggested, the name given to an alien spacecraft discovered under similar circumstances in the 1973 science fiction novel Rendezvous with Rama by Arthur C. Clarke. So, and I'm guessing that's because it was so strange that they're like, "Oh my gosh, is this it? Are we seeing an alien spacecraft?" Later, I had made note of the constellation that it came from our point of view. And then once it left our solar system, the uh, constellation that it went toward. Okay, up at the top. No, wait, not at the top. I know that there's an animation here somewhere. Yeah, let me put this in another window. So this is kind of what it looked like as it entered into the solar system. Slingshotted around the sun and went that way. So it came from our point of view, it came from a particular constellation, and then it ended up going toward a different one. And the constellations that it came from and is going to are interesting. Oumuamua appears to have come from roughly the direction of Vega in the constellation of Lyra. Okay, so Lyra. And then it is now heading away from the sun toward Pegasus, towards a vanishing point 66 degrees from the direction of its approach. So Lyra, the one that it came from, let me just read it what it says here on the Lyra article of Wikipedia. Lyra was often represented on star maps as a vulture or an eagle carrying a lyre, which is like a harp, and hence is sometimes referred to as vulture cadence or Aquila cadence, either falling vulture or falling eagle. Here's a depiction of it, and whenever you see a harp or a harp-like instrument, hopefully that makes you think of King David, right? Because he's famous for having played on the harp to try and calm psychotic Saul, the king at the time. So you have this coming from this constellation, but on top of that, read what it says in Matthew 24. This is the big second coming chapter of Matthew 24, where he's talking all about the second coming, what to expect, the signs. Okay. He says, "As the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together." So I'm not saying that there's like a direct connection between this, but there could be. There might be, you know, where you have, what is this one again? Lyra. When you have the constellation Lyra, that sometimes is depicted as either a vulture or an eagle, right? A falling eagle, a falling vulture. Again, look at this animation. Oumuamua itself coming from that constellation, looking like it's falling to the earth and gathering where the carcass is, right? And then it's headed off to Pegasus, which obviously Pegasus is a flying horse. And in the book of Revelation, chapter 19, it says, "And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse. And he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True." This is Christ. "And in righteousness he doth judge and make war. His eyes were as flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, clean or white and clean." So, well, we know that when he comes, he's going to be coming in the air. That's how it's always described, that he's coming in the cloud, he's coming in the air. And a Pegasus is a horse that flies in the air. So it's just really, it's really interesting. The name of Oumuamua, the fact that it's from outside of our solar system, that its name means first in advance of, that it's a scout, and it's coming from the falling eagle and going to the flying horse. Maybe coming from there to make a report, making a report on Earth and delivering that report to the head of the army that's coming. I don't know. Just very interesting. Okay, now the third interstellar object is Comet 2I Borisov, and this is an actual picture of it. Okay, Comet 2I Borisov is the first confirmed interstellar comet. Not object, but comet. The first interstellar comet. Where I guess you could say that that first one that crashed into the Pacific would have been the first meteor, and then Oumuamua, with what they believe, would have been the first asteroid. Okay. But if you're just putting them all in the class of objects, this would be the third. It was discovered by Crimean amateur astronomer Gennady Borisov on August 30th, 2019, and quickly became a global phenomenon. After a week of observations by amateur and professional astronomers worldwide, scientists determined the path of the fleeting visitor and confirmed it came from outside our solar system. And aside from that, there's not a whole lot of other details about this. So the most notable thing is that it's the third. Well, it's either the second or the third, depending on if they decide that the first one was from outside of our solar system. Okay, so when we go back here, this is kind of how things go. So first we have IM1, which Avi Loeb believes is the first interstellar object. This happened in 2014. Oumuamua made its closest approach to Earth on the 14th of October, 2017, just 3 months before President Nelson became president of the church. And remember what we just said about Oumuamua in the different symbolism that seems to be associated with it. Then in 2019, you have 2I Borisov that was discovered, and then a few months later, it made its closest approach to Earth, the third interstellar object. And then in 2020, we had Comet Neowise. In fact, I need to... No, I'll leave it like that. That's how... I'm trying to make sure that I'm putting down the name of the comet in the right way, like the standard way, and that is the standard way. So Neowise C2020 F3. This was the brightest comet since Comet Hale-Bopp in 1997. The one that we were talking about earlier that was associated with Heaven's Gate, the Heaven's Gate cult. So the brightest one since 1997, and it happened during a really critical year, by the way. In fact, it was discovered in March. And that's interesting because, here, let me zoom out. March of that year, that's the same month. Let me zoom in. That's the same month that the dimming of Betelgeuse ended. That's the right shoulder of the constellation Orion. It had gone through this dimming period for a few months, a mysterious dimming. So that ended. Angel Moroni dropped his trumpet from the Salt Lake Temple on the 77th day of the year. Missionaries were called home on the 20th, and on the 25th, all temples worldwide were closed due to the pandemic. And then a couple days after that, that's when Neowise was discovered. Not when it was the closest to Earth, but when it was discovered. Okay, and then its closest approach was on July 23rd. I think I need to add that on here. No, I have it. It's up here. So that was during the time of the George Floyd protests that were going on. A month after that, the largest wildfire in California state history, the August Complex Fire. So it was a crazy year. I don't need to tell you. All right, so we got Neowise. And then in 2021, you had C2014 UN271 Bernardinelli Bernstein. Excuse me. That was discovered. And what was interesting about this, now you can see here that for visible to the naked eye, I have no, that it's not going to be visible to the naked eye. But it is the largest comet ever discovered. The largest comet ever discovered. And there's actually an article that gives you a depiction of how it compares to other objects. I actually don't know what these other things are. I know Phobos, that's one of the moons of Mars. Pandora and Arakath and Enceladus. I don't know what those are. Let's see. Whatever. These are probably other asteroids or possibly moons within our solar system, but you get the idea. This is really big. This is a really big comet. Okay. The biggest comet ever seen will get as close as Saturn in 2031. So, based on current projections, and by the way, if any of these things, if any of these comets or asteroids or whatever, if any of them are predicted to come at a certain time, that's making a big assumption that their speed is going to stay at a constant rate or according to scientific models. If in reality, for example, if this is actually the sign of the Son of Man, Comet Bertinelli Bernstein, um, well, it could speed up. Anything could happen. So that's why I think that we should probably have it on our radar. I can't track every single comet, you know, but the ones that stand out, I'll try and track those. And this is one of them because it's the largest that we've ever seen. Maybe it's the largest that we've ever seen because the hosts of the armies of heaven uh, is what makes it the largest. You know, maybe this is the sign of the Son of Man. Maybe it's Christ and his armies coming. So, a mega comet, potentially the largest ever discovered, is heading from the Oort cloud towards our direction, estimated to be 100 to 200 kilometers across. The unusual celestial wanderer will make its closest approach to Earth or to the Sun in 2031. However, the closest it will come to Earth is to the orbit of Saturn. Astronomers say Comet Bertinelli Bernstein, or C 2014 UN 271, could be the largest member of the Oort cloud ever detected, and it is the first comet on an incoming path to be detected so far away. So this is another key component about this one. If this is actually the sign of Son of Man, then and if it stays at that rate, if it doesn't come here until 2031, then we got a warning well in advance. They've been seeing this thing for a long time from far, far away. I guess probably because of its size. So anyway, um, that article that I just read was talking about that it may be the largest, but if you go to my reference under column J, I have another one from NASA where it says Hubble confirms largest comet nucleus ever seen. So it is in fact the largest. There's no question of it. It's just that this article came out later. So discovered January of 2021, and then it had on the 14th of September outburst of brightness. And this outburst of brightness, it happened between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, or the 10 days of awe, during the high holy days. The two high holy days are Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So just another thing that makes this peculiar. It makes it very peculiar. Okay. I mean, come on. So we should definitely watch this one, That's why, if you come across any news about any comets, even if it's one that we've already put on here, if you think it's significant, just send it to me anyway. Just send it to me. I'll determine if it's something that we've already talked about or whatever. But if it's something new, like say that there's another outburst of brightness or something like that, then I want to make sure to keep track of that. So, very odd. Very odd. Now, this year, we had this comet, C 2022 E3 ZTF. It was discovered last year, but it made its closest approach to Earth this year on the 1st of February. And this is one that we were watching because this was kind of the first one that I was really... this is like when I started paying attention to comets. There was this one that came up that was going to be visible to the naked eye. And so, and this was after, Christmas, where we had that incredible First Presidency Christmas devotional. talking about all these different things about the second coming, and what were the qualities of the people that first heard about the Savior's birth, as though they were giving us hints as like how we need to be among the first to find out that the second coming is happening. So I really had that on the mind, and so we were watching it, but it came and went, and it was not the sign of the Son of Man. But we were interested in this because it has such a long orbit, according to their calculations, 50,000 years. So for all intents and purposes, we've never seen it before. And so I was like, well, maybe there's a reason that we haven't seen it before. Maybe it's coming for the first time to Earth. But anyway, it came and went. And then we had earlier this year Comet C 2023 A3 Sushen Atlas, which there's nothing really too notable about it that I've been able to find other than it's going to be visible to the naked eye. And it is going to make its closest approach to Earth on the 13th of October of next year. And interestingly, that's going to be the day after Yom Kippur. So you see how like all these comets, it's like they have this like special attraction, most of them, to the Jewish holiday seasons. Um, it's really weird. It's really weird. I don't think that it's a coincidence. But anyway, so we have that one to look forward to, October of next year. Um, and then let's see. So that was announced. Pons Brooks. I may have messed up on something here. Maybe not. I guess I didn't get the discovery date of Pons Brooks. Anyway, we have Comet 12P Pons Brooks that on the 20th of July abruptly brightened 100-fold. And all the articles make note of the fact that it looks kind of like the Millennium Falcon, its shape. I'm not sure if I have an article up for it. Let's just look it up really quick. This is something that I probably should have had up. You may think it's funny just because it's like, oh, it's Star Wars, it's no big deal. And it may not be, but people have pointed out, the fact that it looks like the Millennium Falcon, right? Maybe maybe the Lord has a sense of humor, and he's like, let's call this one the Millennium, or let's have this one look like the Millennium Falcon. Sorry, I'm trying to find. Okay, let's go to this skyandtelescope.org. So so it looks like the Millennium Falcon roughly. So that's kind of the only notable feature about it. And then you had this interesting thing happen where on the 20th of July, it abruptly brightened by 100 times. And then we have Comet Nishimura, the one that we're doing this video about mostly, which we're going to be able to see it, or it's going to be the closest to Earth on the 12th of September. So again, and it's going to be visible to the naked eye. Potentially the fourth interstellar object that we've ever observed. So this might be an interesting one. Now, I'm aware, like I said, that I think Jen Stevens and others, like other Christian websites, I think they've been talking about this comet. I'm not sure. I'm going to be talking to her hopefully later today if I have time, or tomorrow. So I'm going to talk to her and kind of get the scoop. But normally I don't have time to watch very many videos, but a lot of people have been talking about her video and about these other like evangelical channels that are talking about what I think is this comet in the constellation Virga. Because my understanding from the little that I've seen and read, it seems like the Revelation 12 sign is happening again, where you have Virga being clothed with the sun, it's at her shoulder, and the moon is at her feet. Here's the moon right here. You can't see it that well. The only thing about it is that there's supposed to be, I think, 12 stars above her head. She's crowned with 12 stars. And so people look at the constellation Leo, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then because Venus and Mercury are at this moment in this vicinity, then it's like, oh, there's 12 stars, but there's only 11, unless I'm missing something. I don't know. I don't know if like there's some people that are like, well, technically it has 9 stars, but it's actually 12 because you're supposed to count this one right here too. Or I don't know. I don't really know, but my understanding is that you have this going on, the Revelation 12 sign, and I think I saw somebody talking about the path of Comet Nishimura, how it's like making its way. Well, it looks like it's actually making its path is like going through the zodiac. Well, which I guess it makes sense because maybe it's on the astral plane. I don't know if like most comets are they. Whatever. Okay, so it's making its way through the zodiac toward Virgo. Sorry, I said Virgo before. Virgo. And I think I saw a guy say something like, "Oh, well, this is like her being impregnated, and so it's like another sign." And that very well could be. Um, if you look at this, the date that I have here is the 19th of September. If you go back a day, you could say that it's still the same, but the moon is like more right here rather than at her feet. So you have like the 19th, the 20th, it's like all the way down here. So if you go to the Hebrew calendar, Rosh Hashanah is going to be taking place the 16th and 17th. So let's go back to this. If we were to go to the 16th, the moon would be at her arm, and the 17th, it would be like at her hand. But it is during the high holy days. You could say that. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into it further. I'll talk to Jen and see what she says. But this could potentially be another big sign, especially with Comet Nishimura. If that guy's interpretation is right, if it's like, yeah, I know it's impregnating her, you know. If you're not familiar with what the Revelation 12 sign is, it's if you read the 12th chapter of the book of Revelation, it compares the church to a woman uh, being pregnant, giving birth to a child. The child is the kingdom of God, meaning the political kingdom. So it's like the woman is the ecclesiastical kingdom, and then the child is the political kingdom, and how things weren't able to begin at the time of Christ. We had a great apostasy that happened first. And so the woman went into hiding with the child, but in the last days, the church has come out of obscurity. It's come out of the wilderness, and we're preparing for the political kingdom of God in the millennium. Okay, that's all it has to do with. So this sign has happened. According to gospel lessons, it happened at the time that Joseph Smith received the plates. I haven't verified that myself, but I'll take him at his word. And then this happened in 2017 during women's conference. These are both things that I want to confirm for myself, so maybe I'll do that in the future. I like to confirm things for myself because sometimes people shoehorn things, stretch things to fit. But anyway, it appears that it may be happening again, in that it's happening during the high holy days. And there's also this comet that's coming at the same time. So it could be a convergence of things. I guess only time will tell. Um, what the heck was I doing? So So we have that. So we have Nishimura that's coming up, that's associated with all of that, on top of being potentially the fourth interstellar object. Okay? And then back to Pons Brooks. This is the one that abruptly brightened 100-fold. It's actually going to be visible. Well, they don't know if it's going to be to the naked eye. You may need binoculars, but it's going to be visible during, like, if you're inside the path of totality during the 2024 eclipse. So that's another thing that makes Pons Brooks very interesting. Can you imagine seeing a comet with the naked eye in the path of totality? Strange things are happening. These are all very weird things. Pons Brooks is going to make its closest approach to Earth on the 24th of June of next year, but you'll be able to potentially see it April 8th on the day of the eclipse if you're in the path of totality. All right. And then you have this one, Bernardinelli Bernstein, the largest comet ever discovered, by their calculations coming 2031. And the closest that it'll come is Saturn. Okay, so so basically, just to summarize, as far as like seeing comets with the naked eye, we have Nishimura on September 12th of this year. And then April 8th, if you're in the path of totality, Pons Brooks. If you're not in the path of totality, then the 24th of June. And then October 13th, in the case of Suchinshan Atlas. Currently, these are all the comets that I know about, other than like Hale-Bopp and ones in the past. I'm going to, take some time to add all that. But these are all very strange things. All these happening around the time of President Nelson's presidency. Like all of a sudden, we start having interstellar objects, and we start having things like the largest comet ever seen, and you have these outbursts of brightness and light. You have a comet coming during the path of it. You're going to be able to see during the path of totality of a very significant eclipse, and it's just weird. Things like this haven't happened before. It hasn't happened before. I feel like these are definitely signs in the heavens. Ones that we should pay attention to, especially because it seems, based on what Joseph Smith has said, that people are initially going to think that it's a comet or a planet. In fact, again, think about Bernardinelli Bernstein and how it's actually larger. Where to go? Sir? There we go. Especially given the fact that it's actually larger than the moon of Mars. So you could be like, oh, it's like a planet. It's a comet planet. It's huge. I don't know. Any one of these could turn out to be the sign of the Son of Man, where at some point it's going to part ways from their predictions and their models, and they're going to be like, oh, this is something else that's going on. Well, maybe it got trapped in Earth's gravity, or there's some thing that knocked it our way. There was a collision and now it's coming our way, or something like that. So well, there you have it. Feel free to always send me stuff whenever comet news comes up, and then I'll update my spreadsheet. But this is the only way. It's at this point, it's absolutely necessary for me to have this spreadsheet to keep track of it all, because a lot of these names are not very memorable. There's no way that I'm going to remember Suchinshan Atlas. I can remember Atlas, I guess, but even so, I'm not going to remember 2022 E3 ZTF, so I have to write it down. But that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. Like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.